It's the weekend, it's waiver time, we're back. It's not the sexiest waiver wire by any means, but there's still a ton of guys that have a lot of value that can really help you win week 7, and a dub is a dub. That's what we want. We want to keep moving on, inching closer to that playoff spot, inching closer to trying to bring home a fantasy basketball championship. I hope all you American guys had a great Thanksgiving, and all you non-American guys, I hope you had a great weekend too. There should be a lot of content loaded into this video. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris, and no, I just don't need to gloat about it anymore. We all know my mini hoop jumper is just fucking sexy. Okay, first up, we're going to go with Jaylen Wells from the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, we talked about Jaylen way back in the pre-draft stuff as like a guy you could grab that had a ton of upside later in your drafts as like a sleeper. And well, to start out the year, he's definitely whipped out his nuts and put him on my forehead because he's just been too inconsistent for fantasy purposes to be useful enough for 12-team leagues so far, at least in the early going. But I have always liked his game. He was a great scorer in college. He has the skill set. He's been kind of relegated so far this year to like spot up three-point shooting duty. So far, duty. And like sitting in the corner waiting for a kickback. And I didn't expect that going into this year. He was very good creating off the dribble in college. And I thought, even though it wasn't the greatest in his rookie year, I thought he was going to build onto that coming into this year and really be able to be a secondary scorer for them alongside Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. It just hasn't worked out that way. But with Morant's injury, with his calf injury, he's been really balling out in his last 3. Like if we look at his game logs here, he's getting up 13 shots, 11 shots, 10 shots, 8 for 13 with 4 threes, 22 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. Like that's unreal. That's great production, what we want. And then he followed up that game with 5 threes and 25 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block, going 9 from 11 from the floor, shooting 80%. He was aggressive. He was looking for a shot consistently. He was confident. And that's the Jaylen Wells that I thought in the offseason that we'd maybe see this year. So maybe this Morant injury is just giving him that little boost, that little spark that he needed. And hopefully this can maybe continue longer, even when Morant's back. But regardless of that, though, you can pick him up for this coming week when he's playing this well, because as you can see, he's really good. He can cover a bunch of different categories. He can score, hit threes, and usually decent from the floor, percentage-wise. I'm hopeful for the guy, but I definitely need to see it more consistently, because he's really been so inconsistent this entire year. So I'm not just fully buying back in after 3 games, but he's definitely worth a spec ad in 12-team leagues, just to see how much of this sticks. Okay, we'll keep going with Julian Champagnie off the San Antonio Spurs. Now he's definitely getting a bump with Wembio and definitely getting a bump with Castleout. And if you look at his game logs, he has been really balling out for the last 4 or 5. He's hitting threes, he's scoring, he's rebounding, he's dishing the rock. He's had 3 straight double-doubles. He's blocking a few shots as well. He has great size and length at 6'7" with that nice wingspan. When he's being able to get up 13, 14, 10, 15 shots per game, he can be very useful. He just hasn't been this year because he's been buried on that depth chart when San Antonio has been at full strength. So again, this is probably more of a short-term thing. I definitely don't think he's going to continue on this trajectory. When San Antonio gets Castle back, when Wemby's back, he's definitely going to revert down. But at least this maybe builds his confidence, gives him a bit more confidence going forward in his shot and his hustle stats. You love guys that just get after it on the boards, get after it on the defensive end, and that's what Julian's doing right now for the Spurs. He's a nice pickup for this week, next couple weeks, until these guys get back, and then you can drop him for somebody else and move on. Okay, we'll keep going with Tre Jones. Now, I don't know how many people in 12-team leagues held on to Tre Jones after he got hurt and then Kobe White returned, because I know we've seen it in the past when White is healthy, Jones just never has a big enough piece of that cake, that juicy cake, to have a consistent role to be a useful in standard 12-team leagues. But in his last 3, if we disregard that first one off injury, he has been pretty useful alongside White. Like he's still scoring, he's dishing out assists. He had 5 steals, 1 block in his previous game. He looks like he's hovering close to around that 30-minute per night mark. And if he gets around 30 minutes with that second unit and partially in the first unit, depending on how they do the rotations, he can be useful. He's showing that he can be useful in teams that desperately need a guard heavy stats. I'm still a little skeptical though, because of those 2-3 decent games that he had, he only got up 5 shot attempts in one and 4 shot attempts in the other, which that volume is just way too low. His margin for error will just be 0. If he just misses either one of those shots, his lines look a lot worse. He's not scoring in double digits. But again, if the minutes are there, which I wasn't really sure that they were going to be once White returned, I think he still has some value for 12-team leagues. So keep your eye on him. And curious, did you guys let him go when he got hurt and White returned, or did you hold on tight? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, we'll keep going with this kind of theme of more of a short-term ad rather than like a rest of season, longer-term hold with Will Richard from the Golden State Warriors. Now, right away, Steph's injured, so Will's going to step into a way more prominent role inside that Golden State lineup as long as Steve Kerr doesn't fuck with his rotations like he always does. But if he's getting the minutes, if he can get over 25 minutes per night or closer to that 30 minutes per night mark, he can be useful. He can hit the three, he can score. He's so great at setting screens, back cutting, kind of running free, getting to that open space inside that fast-moving Golden State offense where Green can just hit him for a back cut or dunk. He's going to hustle, so he's going to bring down boards, and he has decent hands too. He can read the game. He has a high basketball IQ, so he's going to get some steals. I don't think he's going to like stuff the stat sheet on a nightly basis for as long as Curry's out by any means, but if you need threes, cheap source of points, some rebounds, and some swipes, Richard could definitely be your guy. And pretty much everything that I just said, you can take for Moses Moody too. He's going to get an extended run. He's going to be over 30 minutes per night without Steph out pretty much for sure. He can hit the three, he can score, he can rebound, he can pass a little bit, he can get some defensive contributions, he can steal the ball. He's not the greatest by any means, but when you're getting a huge role, huge piece of that cake in that offense, you got to take notice, and this will definitely be a short-term thing until Steph's back. But you can do a lot worse on the waiver wire for 12 league teams for a short-term boost.
How much you want to bet?
Sorry guys if this wasn't the best video as in depth as I usually like to do, as I usually do in past videos. I was busy as shit this weekend, chasing around the kid, crushing beers with the boys. I just kind of ran out of time, but I wanted to put something out there. So sorry if this just didn't seem as in detail, as in depth as I usually do. Hopefully it was still good though. Okay, now it's time for another schedule breakdown here. A few of you guys liked that segment last week, so we're going to continue on with it again this week. So again, I'm not going to go over every schedule, every team's schedule this coming up week. I think that's just kind of ridiculous and kind of pointless in my opinion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select a few that I think have really bad schedules, maybe a couple that have adverse schedules, and then my favorite schedules for teams that have at least a decent amount of streaming waiver options available, that either have good matchups, lots of games, or front loaded with an open spot on Sunday. So let's get into it. Okay, first up we have the Phoenix Suns, one of only two teams with only 2 games this week, and with one of their games falling on Friday, which is the busiest night in the NBA with 12 games. So it'll be really hard for fringe guys, waiver wire type guys, streamer guys to crack your lineup on that night. So really, it's only like a 1-game schedule this coming up week for Phoenix. But people like O'Neal, you probably don't need to stream this week unless you're like really desperate for some threes and swipes. And then guys like Goodwin are probably just best left on the wire for this crappy week of games for Phoenix. So the other 2-game week is Sacramento. Now, honestly, I didn't realize how available Keegan Murray is in a lot of leagues. Saw his name in a bunch of comments, ad drop comments. He 100% needs to be rostered everywhere. I thought people were stashing him. I guess not, or I definitely would have mentioned him a lot earlier. I just didn't think that was a thing. But everyone outside of that, just no for this week. That team is just so gross. So usually a 2-game week just automatically will get you in one of the worst schedules, but my only 3-game week for a team that's getting in the worst is Memphis. Now again, they do have 3 games coming up, and one's on the heaviest slate on Friday. So again, any streamers or waiver wire fringe guys are probably not going to crack your starting lineup that day, so it's really more of a 2-game slate. That means you get a Tuesday game, then nothing until Sunday. So it's really tough to hold or stream guys like Mr. Jacques Landale and Cam Spencer. I'm still holding Williams Jr. everywhere, and like I said in the main waiver wire section, Wills is intriguing. It could be an ad for Tuesday, see how he plays. If he plays good, you can hold him throughout the rest of the week, or you know, if he goes back to the dumpster, plays like shit, you can drop him and stream him for somebody later on in the weekend. Okay, and there will be an honorable mention for almost a worst schedule of this week, and that's Oklahoma City. Their opponents are just so dog shit though. Any waiver guys like Dort, Caruso, Joe, Wallace could get extended minutes, could be practically playing the entire second half. It's the blowout game because they're going up against Golden State without Curry, so we know how that's going to go. Then they got Dallas and Utah to close out the week. Same thing though, similar the other 2 teams, that they do have a game on Friday, that busiest slate of the week, so there's probably a real low chance that either of these guys that you're going to pick up off the wire are actually going to crack your starting lineup on Friday, so that's down a man game right there. But they do finish off on Sunday, which could be nice to try and get a last game in there to turn the tables on your matchup and maybe sneak out a win. All right, fuck doing average schedules. That doesn't matter. You know, if those guys are available, they're probably getting picked up because it's an obvious pickup or they have some rest of season value. But for the best schedules, we're going to start off with Atlanta. So they're one of the many teams with 4 games this week, but it starts off nice with a Monday, Wednesday, and then a back-to-back Friday, Saturday to open up a Sunday spot, a Sunday streamer spot. The only thing is there's not real many options on the wire for streaming, like on the radar, besides Rishishizer. I always think I'm having a stroke when I say his fucking name. But for deeper leagues, maybe Mr. Veet as well. We'll follow that up with the Brooklyn Nets. Now, they definitely have a real weak schedule of teams coming up and that don't really play that much defense with Charlotte, Chicago, Utah, and New Orleans. Sunday is open for a streamer spot as well. They're front loaded with games, which I like to get a bump on that man games early in the week. And then you can kind of see near the end of the week on the weekend what categories you need to come back in or how many points you're behind. This is one of my favorite streaming teams this week just because I think the 2 quality options that you have for practically all leagues, or at least a lot of leagues, with Doyman and Clowney. Again, 2 of those guys I do think are starting to gain a lot of traction, especially Clowney. I know I've talked about him a bunch in deeper league ads and waiver league ads as a guy that potentially has some season long value. And then Doyman as well. Keep an eye on him. If he continues to play better, especially in the second half of the year, you see with these rookies, he could be a real difference maker down the stretch. We'll move on to the San Antonio Spurs. Now they have a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday, which is not as good as the Monday, Tuesday, but it's the next best thing, obviously, duh. Memphis is a real nice spot to open up the week. They have a tougher 2 matchups with Orlando and Cleveland to finish it off. They're probably the only 3-game team that makes the best category for me, as you get a quick 2 games with someone like Johnson, Harper, Barnesy, Champagnie, Cornette, or Sohan. The list goes on, and you can just see how they do and then see who's available with a Thursday, Friday, and Sunday schedule and move elsewhere. It's a really nice layout to bump your man games up a lot this week with just a lot of options hopefully around that you can grab and help out your team. All right, and we'll finish up with the Washington Wizards. They're the only team with a back-to-back to start the week, which is huge. On Monday, Tuesday, you get an early man games bump to start the week out. There should be a lot of options available for most leagues with Koulibaly, the number 1, who still might have some season long value as well. Middleton can be streamed for some 3s, cheap boards, and maybe a pop-off game. Not like a real pop-off game. I just meant for his standards, nothing crazy, obviously. Whitmore could get some decent run this week. And then there's Bub Carrington if you want a cheap source of assists. So again, there's lots of options, solid schedule layout. Boston is only the really tough D that they have, but they have nice soft landing spots with Philly, Milwaukee, and Atlanta otherwise. Okay, now it's time for the recap segment. And again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these guys. We're just going to quickly go through it, see if there's a punishment, see how they did. Make sure to check this out. You never know if I can hit myself in the nuts, or maybe these guys are still floating around on your wire and they could have some real value for you and your team the rest of the season.
It's time for Number to Sports Weekly Waiver Wire Recap. Is he going to hit himself in the not-so-torpedo of beer? Let's find out if he fucked you over last week with his weekly recommendations.
Okay, first up, we have the greatest passer since Steve Nash and White Chocolate. That was Vince Williams Jr. Now, he started off with kind of a clunker game. He had 6 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks, and 2 threes. Only shot 8 attempts from the floor, so it was whatever. But next week, he had 17 assists. The guy was just handing out dimes left, right, and center like a free candy stand. He's not scoring at all, but when he's getting this many assists, it just doesn't matter. And then the last game, he had 2 threes, 16 points, 1 rebound, 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 7 to 17 from the floor. Only 23 minutes, but still, when he's putting up lines like this, he needs to be added everywhere, regardless if he's scoring a lot or not. And then next up, we had Peyton Watson. He was kind of a repeat guy, as I talked about him earlier as a deep league ad. And if we look at his game logs, he had a absolute amazing game. 5 threes, 27 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, while shooting 50% from the floor on 22 shots in 33 minutes. Absolute stud stuff. And he followed that up with another good game. 15 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 4-4 from the line too. Shot a little worse from the floor, going 5 and 11. But if we just look at his minutes over like the last 6 or 7 games, all 33 minutes and up, 34 minutes, and it's awesome right now. The Christian Braun injuries really helped him. I really like his skill set. He has a nice defensive floor. Again, this isn't a guy that should be floating around on any 12 league team wires right now. And we'll keep going with the great white hope, TJ McConnell. Now, like I said, he just needs the minutes. His usage when he has the ball, when he's on the court, when he's playing is just so good. Like if we just look at his last 3 games, 22 minutes, 16 points, 1 rebound, 5 assists, 3 steals. Next game, 24 minutes. He's getting up 17 shots in 24 minutes, by the way. 16 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. And then the last one, 19 minutes, 7 from 9 from the field, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, 1 steal, 1 block in 19 minutes. Like if this guy could get close to 30 minutes per night, he would be I don't even know. He would be an absolute stud. I don't know if he's ever going to get there. I really hope he does. But it's such a gamble worth taking that, again, I really don't want him floating around on any 12 league team wires right now either. Okay, and the last up we had Colin Gillespie, and man, this is a sick waiver wire. If you look at his games, he is stuffing the stat sheet in so many different ways. Points, rebounds, assists, steals, threes. He's shooting over 50% from the floor. His last three, he's getting up 12, 15, 16 shots in the mid 30s for minutes. His usage is great. He's really stepped up in all the injuries that Phoenix has had with Jalen Green, Grayson Allen. I don't know when they're going to be back, and when they're back, I don't know what his role is going to look like. But again, the upside right now, the way he's playing, is just way too good to be left around on any wires. I think this was like the easiest call ever. I think all four of those guys are good, are studs, could be studs with a little bit more minutes in TJ's case. And who knows what's going to happen in the long term. But for the short term, a lot of these guys are just juicing right now. Easy, no punishment, baby. Give myself a little 4 for 4. All right, boys, but I think that's it for this video. Appreciate you guys still watching, liking this video, commenting down below. Again, I'll try to reply to every single comment, every single video. And if you aren't subbed, make sure you hit that sub button. Make sure you don't miss a video. I'm going to try to do 2 videos per week. If you haven't watched my latest buy low video that I posted on Friday, make sure you check that out. Part 2 of that video, the sell highs, can be dropping sometime earlier this week. If you haven't seen my previous waiver wire video, check out that as well. And again, as always, have a great rest of your weekend, week, day, night, wherever you are. And I'll see you guys real soon.